I think rough would be sugarcoating it if you're trying to describe the start to Bryce Young's second year in the NFL. I think rough would even be sugarcoating it to say his start to his career, including last year, would be sugarcoating it. Um, this play went pretty viral after his interception. Bryce Young's reaction to his interception, it just looks like a defeated player. Um, I'm always going to root for somebody to succeed, but it makes a lot of sense why Bryce Young was benched after this game. And, I think if Dave Canales and the Carolina Panthers coaching staff could have made the decision in game, they probably would have went with it because they have vastly improved around Bryce Young. The offensive line, the skill position players, it's a vast improvement. And a lot of people want to say, get Bryce Young some help. Bryce Young needs to help himself. And this interception doesn't just look bad. It looks exactly like the interception that he threw last week against New Orleans, where he just, they made a point to say it in the broadcast when he threw the initial interception that I showed, but he's trying to throw with anticipation. I don't know how much you can anticipate when you just aren't seeing a safety or you aren't seeing a guy very easily covered. And it's the exact same throw pretty much back-to-back plays. Not the same route and not the same position on the field, but it's the same result where the over-the-top safety is not being seen, and it's very easy to be intercepted. And that's exactly what's happened to Bryce Young both weeks so far. And look, benching Bryce Young wasn't just the right decision to make for him, because I think you're looking at this and you're looking at these two interceptions from Bryce Young. There needs to be a pretty obvious sit down with him and kind of an evaluation of what this first year and 2 games has looked like so far, because it hasn't just been bad, it's been terrible. And especially if you're Dave Canales, you're trying to prove that not only were you the correct hire at this time, you're the head coach going forward. And when your team has been outscored 73-13 and your offense has produced 0 passing touchdowns and 1 rushing touchdown, you have no choice but to try to look in a different direction. You can't survive in the NFL with the type of production that the Carolina Panthers have had offensively. And again, if you're Dave Canales, you kind of have to look at this and say, I wasn't the coach when this guy was drafted. I wasn't the coach when this guy went through his rookie year. That's Frank Reich. Whatever Frank Reich thought of Bryce Young, I can guarantee you at this point, Dave Canales is not thinking the exact same things. I can guarantee you Dave Canales wants to have somebody at quarterback that's going to guarantee him a future as head coach of the Carolina Panthers and as a head coach going forward in this league. You don't become a head coach just to hopefully get demoted back to offensive coordinator if you even get the offensive coordinator job again. You want to be considered, however you can elevate your standing in the NFL, that's how you do it. And with what Bryce Young has done for the Carolina Panthers offensively, there's, it would make you think that Dave Canales is not a good head coach when I think, 2 games in and Bryce Young is making these decisions. I think it's kind of tough to put that on Dave Canales. It's even tougher to put this on any of the players because what are the receivers supposed to do when Bryce Young makes these decisions? What is the offensive line supposed to do when they're protecting Bryce Young somewhat well? Bryce Young has been sacked a total of 6 times in these 2 games. I really would not say that all of them are on the offensive line. I would pin a few of them on Bryce Young either not getting out of the pocket when he needs to, or not throwing the ball away when he needs to, or not throwing the ball when he needs to. It's just a tough look all around with Bryce Young when he just hasn't played well. And I've said that a lot already, but, he's kind of the one to blame for what has happened for the Carolina Panthers so far. I wouldn't think that we've seen the last of Bryce Young as a Carolina Panther. But, we've seen crazier things happen in the NFL. We've seen guys get replaced quicker. We've seen guys get replaced slower. But I think with all of the elements at stake, you have guys on this team that are trying to prove themselves offensively, and you have a head coach who's trying to prove himself. And so far, you have a team that gave up a lot for Bryce Young. You need to start maybe cutting your losses and seeing what else you can do, because right now it's just not working for Carolina. Could we see him move to another team this year? I would say that's unlikely. But again, we've seen crazier things happen. And, I just don't see how this gets salvaged from a trade standpoint. But I also just don't really see how this gets salvaged from a him playing standpoint. Because as what I've shown already and what probably you've seen through social media, this looks like a defeated player. Not just a defeated quarterback. This looks like a defeated player. And, a lot of guys we've seen in the NFL, once they get to that point, there's no coming back. And that's really what I fear for Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers.